It's good to meet you. I'm Alan Kersner. I run the Temple University Entrepreneurship Academy. And the Academy is basically focused on spreading entrepreneurial thinking and doing throughout the university. And the way we define entrepreneurial is not necessarily starting your own business, but always being on the lookout and being able to recognize opportunities and figure out how to maximize your impact against them. And the focus here for our social impact workshop series and initiatives is really looking for opportunities to create social good. Unfortunately, we get reminded every day of many of the problems which face us on this planet, in this country, in this city, and even more recently in this university and around the university campus. So what we aim to do here is, number one, inspire you to make a difference. And many of you are self-inspired, and that's the reason you're here. But also to enable you, to help provide you with the tools and guidance on the best way to make an impact. Lindsay just put in the chat link, in chat, a link for the Changemaker Challenge competition, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I don't know why this isn't. Oh, there we go. So ultimately, all of these workshops, and this is the last one for this semester, culminate in what we would call in the baseball world a giant doubleheader, which is the finals for the Changemaker Challenge and the Social Impact Summit. And they both happen on February 24th at 4 o'clock. So similar to the idea competition, all the finalists from the Changemaker Challenge will present to judges and will recognize and award the winners. And then that'll be followed by a major figure in the social impact world in the Philadelphia community. And you'll be hearing more about that over the next couple of weeks. For the Changemakers Challenge, one of the things I want to emphasize is this is a preliminary social impact idea, if you will, competition. You do not need to have business models. We do not want finances. We are not looking for a team, although if you have one, that's great. We're looking for preliminary ideas about opportunities to create social good and your thoughts on how to do that. And so to help with your efforts, on January 12th, 2 days after you return, or 3 days, we're going to have How I Won the Changemaker Challenge, which will be a panel with some past winners. And some of them may be your classmates or your fellow alumni right now. On January 17th, you're going to all have the opportunity to sign up for expert mentoring. So talking to people who are experienced in the social impact world, in the entrepreneurial world, to help you fine-tune your submissions. 11:59 on the 19th, all submissions are due. Lindsay and I will be up late that evening tracking and reviewing. And then on February 24th is the summit. So again, here is the QR code. You can scan it. This provides all the Changemaker Challenge resources. It also includes the submission link, which you can go in and revise until January 19th. So again, I would strongly urge, if you care about anything that's going on, and I know many of you do, share your ideas. We're not looking for rocket science. We're looking from a little bit of innovative thinking and common sense that we can make into common practice. And some very, very intelligent person, I don't think it was Einstein, but it might have been, said that intelligence is putting common sense into common practice. And that's what we're looking for, your ideas that can help really create social good. Okay, with that, I'd now like to introduce our guest speaker and an esteemed colleague of mine, Professor Kerry Slade, who's Assistant Professor of Strategic Management, Assistant Director of the Innovation, Assistant Academic Director of the Innovation Entrepreneurship Institute, and also someone who is extremely active in the social good area well before it became headline type material, and has a lifetime of really working to enhance the lives of people, especially people who have not necessarily had equal opportunity. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Kerry, and I will stop sharing.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for that introduction, Alan. I'm going to share my screen. I'm very happy to be with you here today. I love seeing people who have had my classes, a couple people I've mentored. I am signed up as a mentor, so I'm happy to meet with you separately if that's something you want to do. But really excited you're here to give your ideas a chance. And today we're going to be talking about shaping your venture to create social good. So what does that mean? What I'm really going to be talking today is different types of business models for giving back. They range from the simple to the complex and circular. And we're going to be going through a lot of examples of these types of business models in order for you to ask questions, get ideas, and get tips on how you might be able to advance or even improve the social and environmental impact that you have with your idea. So let's get started. I will try to make this interactive, but I know some of you are on your way home from work or from school. So if we want to just have me talking most of the time, that's totally fine. But we will try to get some feedback and some interaction from you, because that's a lot more interesting for me as well. So I wanted to start off with this brief activity, which is, what do you do with the waste? Right? So I've got a couple of examples up here, and I just wanted to get a couple of ideas of ways that waste could actually be useful or be a raw material, because that's one way to start with designing social and environmental impact, is to start with things that other people are throwing away or that we don't consider to have much use. So I've got a couple of ideas up here. First, athletic injuries. Any of you who have ever been in sports know if you have an injury, you're taping that, you're using ice packs. You may try to reuse the ice packs, but after a while, they just can't be reused anymore. And if you have an injury for several months, that could go on and on. What about a party? After every party, it's the holiday season, there's decorations, there's tablecloths, there's, stuff you put on the wall, other things. Halloween has a lot of decorations. How can we use that waste from a party or other event? And then running. Anyone who's a runner knows if you run a lot, you're getting a couple of running shoes per year. Maybe even more if you're running professionally or at the college or other level. So what are we going to do with all those shoes that are used, but there's no real use for them? And then makeup, unfortunately, a very wasteful industry. A lot of us, generally used more by women than men, but that's actually expanding. So it's not just a female problem anymore. Plastic containers with mirrors. What can we do with that waste? So I'd love to get any ideas. Anyone have any strikes of genius about what we could use any of this waste for as a raw material? Let me check out the chat here. So Alyssa says she keeps old running shoes for gardening work. Yes, or any work that'll make my clothes dirty. I agree with you. And I still have about 5 pairs of old shoes that I'm not using because I don't use them all the old ones. So what else could we use these items for? Any other ideas? Okay, so this is totally fine. I know some of you are in transit and maybe more of in the listening mode here, but this is one thing you can start with. You probably already have a business idea that you're working on, but if you're looking for opportunities, start with things that people are throwing away. How can we actually make that useful? Thanks, Greg. Greg, wading in a rocky stream. Okay, I actually did this activity in one of my classes, and I forced them to come up with a use for this waste, and they actually came up with some really interesting ideas. So it can be done, but let's keep it moving here. So I'm going to go through in general order of simplest to most complex business model. And again, these are just different examples and ideas to give you inspiration and potentially ideas for adding on or modifying your own business model. So what I often see first are these giveaway or funding models. So Tom Shoes, again, I'll try to make it interactive, but if we're dragging a little bit, I'll pivot on that. What is Tom Shoes' business model? What was the original business model that Tom Shoes came up with? Yes, thank you, Leah. One shoe for one, buy one, give one. Thank you, Greg. So their original model was you buy a shoe from us, we give a shoe to someone usually in a developing country that needs shoes. And does anyone know, I won't force us to answer this question, but they ran into a problem with that business model, which is actually very interesting, which is that those shoes they were giving away in developing countries were actually eliminating the need for people to buy shoes from local cobblers. So what they thought was a good thing of giving away a shoe to someone who apparently needed shoes actually turned out to undermine some of the local cobblers in the business. So they pivoted and changed a little bit from that to accommodate those concerns. So now they still give away shoes, but they have a whole grant making program to grassroots causes where 1/3 of their profit goes to these causes. So this is a simple giveaway model. You buy something from us, we give money or give something away in return. Another example here. 4Ocean. Anyone know what this company does? Yeah, Alyssa, go ahead.
Initially they had, if you bought one of their bracelets, and that's all they had in the beginning was bracelets, then they'd pull a pound of plastic waste out of the ocean. And since then, I mean, now they've grown a hell of a lot, and they have reusable water bottles and t-shirts and stuff like that. And they've really expanded where they work in the world and how much merchandise they try to sell, all made from recycled plastics, to just try to clean up the oceans.
Yeah, so great summary. They started with kind of the buy one, we do something model, and generally is for every product you purchase from them, they will pull either 1 to 2 pounds of trash out of the ocean. And they have physical crews doing cleanups. They have some technology with booms that they use all around the world, but they're basically funding their operations through purchases of merchandise, right? Kind of another, we pay something, they do something kind of model. Okay, great. Another one I wanted to highlight was Simply Good Jars. This is a Philadelphia born company. Hopefully some of you have heard of them. And their original business model started off with that thing you see at the top left there, the jar return. So they were actually taking the jars back, cleaning them, and then reusing them, a very circular business model. Now, due to COVID, and actually probably a lot due to the expansion of their distribution, they actually had to scale back from that model. So what they do now is the customers still get the jars and they're not returned, but a customer can scan a QR code and pledge to either reuse or recycle that jar. And whenever a customer scans the QR code and does that, Simply Good Jars will donate money to a local food organization. I believe they work a lot with Phil Abundance in order to donate a meal or food to someone who needs it. So again, moving a little bit away from that circularity in the collection of the jars, and moving more towards you do something, you buy from us, you scan our QR code, we will do something, in return for the community. So these are really simple models about customer does something, it triggers a transaction, kind of a 1-for-1 or a percentage or a proportional donation or action on the part of the company. And I'd say 4Ocean is probably the most complex of these, because they actually have cleanup operations and they have some technology and crews. So on their back end, they actually have a lot of activities rather than simply just giving something away. So things to think about. Any comments or questions about this type of model? Yeah, great. And as Lindsay points out, Jared Cannon, the founder of Simply Good Jars, was just on recently was on Shark Tank earlier this year and has really been growing nicely. And the public goodwill that he creates with this donation model has been very catalyzing for him. Okay, great. So keeping it moving here. The next kind of type of organization I want to highlight are purpose-driven operations. And I'm trying, again, all of these companies are generally have a purpose that drives what they're doing, but there's different ways to categorize the business models that they're using. So I'm calling these purpose-driven operations, and I would love to hear how you would potentially categorize these different businesses, because I think there could really be some interesting literature and articles written about these different business models. So the next category I'm calling purpose-driven operations. And this is a company that I really like. They work mostly internationally, and I'll play a quick video, I think it's a couple minutes, about this company, $1 Glasses. So all right, so going back here, I'm happy to delineate some of my thoughts about this business, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts about this? What is unique about the business in terms of how it serves its customers and has a sustainable business model for the areas in which it works? All right, so one reason I really like this example of a business is it's really, you can tell the empathy that was put into the business. You can tell that every aspect of the operations was created to be able to empower and work in areas where it's needed. So not only is it mostly electricity free, it needs a little bit of electricity, but you can use a car battery to do that. It also is designed as a means of employment. So they're not just handing out glasses to people. What they're actually doing is they're training someone in a local area to make the glasses. Then the glasses may cost $1. Sometimes they could charge $2 for them, so the person makes $1 profit. So they're creating employment for someone, they're training them. And then another aspect that I like is the addition of the beads, adding the beads, the personalization of it, in order to make people feel like they still have dignity, even though they're getting something that's a charitable product. I do believe this is a nonprofit, and I am going to cover a couple of nonprofits here as well, because they can be successful, they can still make money, and you can also morph them into for-profits as well. So a good example of a business really designed for the location and to create empowerment and employment and not just give a handout. For example, like Tom's Shoes, just giving away shoes instead of teaching someone else to potentially make shoes. So another nonprofit example, and I won't go through all these videos, but if we send the slides around, you can watch some of these videos yourself. A lot of times nonprofits really struggle with being innovative. So you can look for examples in something like the Fiber Children's Foundation. And the reason I like this nonprofit is because they don't just run summer camps. They don't just have mentors. They don't just have, athletic programs and school and scholarship programs and things like that. They cover, they follow the children that enter their program for 10 years, from age 8 to 18. And that is really, they're tackling head on one of the problems of nonprofits, that you may give someone something one day and you don't really know how it affects them going forward. You don't really know if they're able to keep up that effort, if it's continuing to make a difference. But this organization decided to follow the kids for 10 years, which is really much different than something a lot of other nonprofits do. So thinking about how you can improve the longevity of your programs, potentially by, doing something over an extended period of time or having sustained contact with people, can really help you not only, it helps your customers, your users actually achieve better outcomes, but it also helps you track your impact better, because tracking social impacts is another challenge that we're all having as well. Okay. So the next example I like to talk about is Philabundance. this is a really good example of another nonprofit that has innovated and changed its business model to be to increase its sustainability and its self-sufficiency. So we probably know Philabundance as a food bank. They get donations from grocery stores. They are one of the largest food banks, the main food bank in our area, and then they give away food to their community partners who then get it into the community. And you can see in the top left picture and the bottom left picture, they're sorting food, they're putting it into boxes, they're doing food banks where people can come and pick up food. But we all know that model is based on grants and donations, right? That's not a self-sustaining model. They need external support. So they've actually developed a number of other business revenue streams, which help with the sustainability of the organization. First, you see here on the right-hand side, some catered food and some people in a kitchen. They've actually started a catering business. So now we can hire Philabundance Catering to cater a wedding, to cater a retirement party, right? We are now paying them for their services. And along with that, with the catering, they now train people in culinary arts. So they have a culinary training program that has graduates, several times a year. Many people then end up still working for Philabundance in the catering operation. So they're creating this virtuous cycle of training people to make food and giving them job skills who can then go out into the community. Again, nonprofits typically rely on grants and donations only. So having a training program with its own revenue stream is really quite unique. And last, they actually have their own retail grocery products. So they have a line of tomato jam and cheese, I believe, that they sell in stores. So thinking about other ways you can diversify your revenue stream as a nonprofit is really important, because grants and donations can be variable and are not always guaranteed from year to year. So please stop me if you have any questions or comments on any of these examples. So another organization I wanted to highlight that actually won the this competition a couple years ago, I believe, if I'm not wrong, Professor Kersner, please correct me, is Vacayability. So again, another organization where its entire purpose is driven by the mission. Basically, Natasha is a person who suffers from physical disabilities, and she loves to travel. So what to her was a problem, she turned into an opportunity. How can I create a website that gives reviews based on accessibility of places people can travel, so that people with different types of disabilities can have more access to travel and more enjoyment, just like the rest of us. So again, another example of an organization that's taking a problem and turning it into a potential opportunity. And the business revenue stream could be quite clear. Once she gets enough reviews on the website, it's going to function just like Travelocity, TripAdvisor, any of those other websites that have reviews, where people will go there to get access to information. They can have ads on there, deals with hotels and other things. So using a proven business model in a new space to solve a problem is really what Natasha did here. And again, she did very well in a competition a couple of years ago. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more complex, moving from giveaway donation models to purpose-driven operations to really a circular business model. And as we learn in business, ironically, we learn about the supply chain, right? We learn about the value chain. And this is a classic simplified example of a supply chain or a value chain. It goes one way, right? And I realized that these graphics are actually very misleading and just completely incorrect, because there's a lot of waste and other things coming off of this business, of this supply chain, that are just not reflected in it, right? So you know that there's waste at the supply chain, at the supplier stage. You know that there's manufacturing waste, that you're putting stuff into dumpsters at the plant. In distribution, there's lots of packaging, the retailing, lots of packaging and marketing materials that maybe are seasonal. And then shopping, of course, you have the outside packaging of whatever it is you're purchasing. You have the packaging, the bag that they're giving it to you in, and then you get home and you throw that stuff away. So this linear business model and this value chain is actually just plain incorrect. It doesn't reflect what's actually happening. And if you take into account the different wastes at each of these stages, you can actually do something about it. So going back to my very first question at the very beginning, what can you do with this waste? So we're going to look at a couple of businesses now that use circularity to change this linear framework into a more circular one. And there's a couple of big ones here. So this is a really interesting business in Kenya that actually uses plastic waste to make building blocks. So we'll watch a quick video, and it's really interesting because she's solving a couple of different problems here, and she's also employing people. So let's check this one out.
We convert plastic waste into building products. Let's turn trash into cash. My name is Nzambi Mate. I'm the founder of Changemaker Limited, and we convert plastic waste into building products. Plastic waste is not just a Kenya problem, but it's a worldwide problem. And here in Nairobi, we generate about 500 metric tons of plastic waste every single day, and only a fraction of that is recycled. We decided, what more can we do instead of just sitting in the sidelines and complaining? Essentially, companies have to pay to dispose the waste. So we solve their problem. The waste essentially comes for free. This is the plastic waste we get from factories. With this, we mix with sand, as the plastic is like the binder. We have 3 machines. The extruder does the mixing of plastic waste with sand at very high temperatures, and then the press compresses it. Plastic is fibrous in nature, and so therefore the brick ends up having a stronger compression strength. Does that look like waste to you? It's almost half the weight, so therefore during transportation and installation it's faster in terms of cost implication. We right now have a capacity of producing 1,000 to 1,500 bricks a day. So far we have recycled 20 metric tons, and we are looking to push that value to 50 by the end of next financial year. Winning the Young Champions of the Earth award is a huge...
So I'll stop it there because I think we got an idea. And as I said, we can share these slides with you and you can check out the links. So here we have a business. It's taking a pure waste product. And actually she has an advantage because she gets this waste for free. So I think we should all challenge ourselves to think of a business where we can get the raw materials for free. I mean, that is a huge advantage to start with. Then she's pressing it into the blocks. Now, so she is taking waste and putting it back into the system, creating a little bit of circularity here. But what is one thing that she would probably need to do in order to create a full circular loop here with this business? How could she improve upon this business as is? How could she make it even more circular? Any ideas? Okay, so this is when we can think about how do we even push the business model even more. Yeah, Rex, did you want to say something? I just saw you were muted, so didn't mean to put you on the spot. So basically, once the plastic gets formed into these bricks and made into pavers, you know, the job is done, at least for a certain period of time. But after 20 years, 30 years, who knows how many years, at some point those pavers are going to get disintegrated. Maybe someone will want to replace them. So in order to even push this business model even more into the circular, she should have some kind of program to collect the old blocks, right? Because they can obviously be melted down again, formed into something else, and reused again. There's really no limit, as far as I know, to the amount of times she could use this waste and reuse it. So taking the waste and using it for something is good. Is there anything else you can do to make sure that once that waste becomes waste again, it comes back into the cycle? So think about that when you're thinking about your business models. All right, another company I wanted to highlight is Boulevard is another Philadelphia company that's a slow fashion company, and they do 2 things. And here we can get a little bit into the internal and external aspects of a business model. So I think this video is pretty short, so I'll play this one. I think it's less than a minute.
Moms. We just got this new book. It's called The Adventure Challenge Family Edition.
The story of Grant Boulevard is, on the surface at least, the story of a single house. But frankly, it's the story of two American realities, one being that of the solidly middle class, people who more or less know stability and safety and hope. But it's also the story of those who live in a collapsed family, one facing adulthood depression, self-medication with cocaine, and one where weighing criminal options is a means of coping, of surviving. And that's what I witnessed there as well, survival. And this is what shapes my thinking on mass incarceration and the choices women who know poverty actually face. I'm Kimberly McLawn, and my company, Grant Boulevard, is a sustainable apparel brand committed to sourcing fabrics in a way that respects the planet, and designing garments and other textiles in a way that's fresh, and to creating fair wage jobs designed for women who have been written off, women who've had an experience with mass incarceration. This is what the DNA of Grant Boulevard is made of. When I started Grant Boulevard, I had one goal in mind: to build a green-collar company that offered a new set of solutions to climate catastrophe and to the fallout of our criminal system. This project has been my life for the last 2 years, and it hasn't been easy, but I'm so proud of our progress. We've grown to a team of 8 incredibly talented women. We've had some great pop-up shopping events, been asked to tell our brand story in diverse spaces, and we've built unique nonprofit collaborations. And now it's time for us to move even further, and we'd really value your help. We need capital in order to grow our Makers Fellowship program, a program that offers formerly incarcerated women an opportunity to learn to sew and to heal. We also plan to use your support to launch a small retail store where folks who want to shop different can meet their makers and see our progress and process for themselves. In return, you'll get stylish garments from our new capsule collection, one dedicated to Miss Maggie Walker, an early voice for empowering women. Our ask of you? Back us up with what you can, and ask your friends and family and coworkers to back us up with what they can too. Join us and feel the sense of hope a Black-owned, women-led social impact venture like Grant Boulevard gives. We're all neighbors. Let's take better care of each other and our planet.
All right, so she's really pushing the social and environmental mission in a lot of fronts here. First, I love the fact that the inspiration from her company came from, in some senses, the difficulties that she went through with her family in her childhood. So I would say to you, don't run from your problems. Don't run from the things that challenged you and pushed you and made things difficult from you, because you can find inspiration in them and create a fabulous business like this. So she's done a couple things. One, of course, the upcycling. They take scrap fabric that's going to be thrown out, fabric from secondhand stores, and they upcycle it into new pieces. So they're using waste, things that would be thrown away. We throw away millions of tons of clothing into landfills every year. So they're taking that waste and they're turning it into something new, something fashionable, something that people will want to buy and pay a premium price for. If you look at their website, their stuff is not cheap. So they're taking waste and creating a premium product from it. Then she also has the employment aspect, where she employs and trains formerly incarcerated women to make the clothing. It probably would have been good enough if she just said, I have an upcycling company. We're using old clothing to make new clothing. That's enough of a mission. And I think, part of this workshop is to help challenge you to push it even further. So she wasn't just satisfied with the upcycling. She's employing formerly incarcerated women and training them with a marketable skill. And then third, you can see on some of her clothing, she's using the opportunity, the public facing, the basically free advertising from the clothing, to push forth certain missions about mass incarceration, cash bail, and other issues that have impacted her and people she cares about and people in the community. So if you have one of these items in your business, think about how you can add something else. So it's not maybe just about what's happening externally, that we're upcycling clothing, but what internally can you change about your practices or modify in order to pack in the social impact and the environmental impact there. I'm looking at the chat here. Yeah, so good comments about transitioning from life in behind bars in order to make a sustainable living for yourself. So another great local Philly company. Okay, and this this company also is trending towards circularity. So trying to eliminate waste and doing it in a way that helps people who are traditionally paying a poverty tax. The poverty tax, so this company is originally out of Chile in South America, but actually it has gotten so much traction that this middle picture you see with the Pine Sol and the Clorox, that's actually in New York City. So this is a company that's come from an emerging market into one of the most famous cities in the world to America. So it just it serves to inspire you and prove to you that starting small doesn't mean you cannot or should not end up big. So I do want to play this video because this is pretty interesting. The poverty tax refers to the idea that if you buy in smaller quantities, you actually pay more per unit or per pound. So if you go to Sam's Club, you get a 20-pound bag of rice, you'll pay a discounted, price per pound than if you go to the corner store and you get like one dinner's worth of rice, right? You're going to pay a lot more for that proportionally. So, so this company decided to tackle that problem. So let's check this one out.
We are trying to solve a problem that we call the poverty tax. The poverty tax means when the families, they don't have enough money to buy larger packaging, so they're buying on a daily basis smaller packaging, and they pay up to 40% more. And this problem affects around 70% of the population in Chile and 85% of the population in Latin America. One of the things that we are doing, we have developed a dispensing machine that we refill with bulk products such as rice, lentils, chickpeas, and beans. We install them in the mom-and-pop stores, and the family buys directly through the machine, reusing a packaging. In that way, we are reducing the price between 30 to 50% for the families. We are not contaminating because they're reusing the packaging. We offer a business for the shopkeeper, and we are making profits.
All right, so another great example of a business that's got a couple of things going on. First of all, it's selling the product at a appropriately discounted rate, right? It's not subsidized. They're still making money off of it, but it's more appropriate in terms of what the people can afford, and is sharing the bulk discount with many different families. So the price has gone down, allowing more people to access the healthy food. The packaging, they could have just had plastic bags that you stick under there. Those are very common in little stores like that. So they didn't have to invest in this type of packaging, but they invested in the reusable packaging so that they could, prevent all of that plastic waste from going into the environment, and also, kind of create a culture of using reusable containers, which hopefully would spread into other things. And then last, they didn't just say, okay, we're going to put this machine in your store and we're going to take all the money. They're actually creating another line of revenue, another revenue stream for business owners. They're creating a reason for people to go into the store for the business owners. So the business owners are also benefiting from this as well. It's modernizing their operations. They probably need to have fewer sacks of things on the shelf. It's more efficient, and they're able to make a profit as well. So again, sticking in as much social impact and packing in as much environmental impact as you can, starting from your initial idea, and then potentially expanding it and making it bigger and better. So again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to stop me. All right, so now moving into full circularity, we will be highlighting Terracycle and Loop, both of which were founded by Tom Zaki, and perhaps against all odds, against what market forces might suggest, have really been successful. So Terracycle started out with an ambitious goal. Basically, how do we pay people? How do people pay us to recycle their things? So this is an example of one of the partnerships they have with the Santa Fe Natural Tobacco Company, where you can recycle your cigarette butts. So they'll make a donation for every pound of waste received. Then they give the waste to Santa Fe Natural Tobacco Company. They make plastic pellets out of it. They make ash and tobacco. The ash and tobacco are composted, put into compost. and people are actually paying for this. So you can see this, this stand on the right-hand side. This is something a company, a university, anywhere where you have smokers would purchase this stand and then collect all the waste and then mail it to Terracycle in order for them to recycle it. So again, potentially against market forces, because this is also a premium product. And I think I have some examples here. You can see all of the different varieties of packages you can order on their website to allow you to recycle. And you can see it's not cheap. So for example, hot cereal bags, you pay them $41. They'll send you this pouch for you to put your cereal bags in, and then you mail it to them. The shipping is free, thank goodness, it's included in that $41. But this just shows how much people are willing to pay for sustainability. Now, is this going to hit every market? Of course not. It's not going to hit low income, probably even middle income consumers. But as the process gets refined and as the waste starts to have more value, as they get more of it, because if they have bulk amounts of waste, it's more valuable, they can probably bring the price down and make this more accessible for us all. So when you're designing your businesses, do not forget that people are interested and willing to pay for sustainability, even when it might seem ridiculous, like collecting your old cereal pouches and mailing them in to be recycled. And you can see some of the other prices on here in the hundreds of dollars. And perhaps the crowning achievement so far of Tom Sacchi is the company Loop. We'll watch a quick video on this, but basically similar to Algramo, you get reusable packaging that's beautifully designed. And the difference here is, again, it's made for a premium customer. So they put a lot of money and time and effort into designing this packaging. Tom actually said people are more interested in the company because of the design of the package and the sustainability. So again, just thinking about how can you elevate your product and make it premium, because people are willing to pay. So for those of you who may not have seen this video, play it. It basically gives an overview of the system. And Tom is hoping this will be the new standard in how people get their product. All right, so this company capitalizes on a couple of trends, not only the sustainability, but also the delivery trend, right? We are now, many of us are used to, willing to have a lot of things delivered. Many of us switched to, grocery delivery with the pandemic. So this is really capitalizing on a convergence of trends that hopefully will lead more people to adopt this. But and as Lindsay pointed out, Tom actually gave a talk for us about a year ago. It's a fascinating talk. Check it out on our YouTube channel if you're interested in this, because he really talks a lot about understanding the customer, or potentially not understanding them, in terms of most customers don't really care that much about social impact and sustainability. So he designed his company to just appeal to the design and the elegance and the premium experience. So another thing to consider is he knew he couldn't just do this by himself. As a delivery model, there will be some people who adopt it, but it's not going to solve the problem of, oh my gosh, I'm out of sugar right now and I need to go get sugar. I can't wait until the Loop person comes back and brings me more sugar either tomorrow or a couple of days from now. So they not only partnered with all these brands in order to design the packaging, so the Terracycle didn't have to do it all themselves, but they actually now have partnered with Kroger, the grocery store, and other grocery stores internationally, so that you can return your Loop items, your containers to a physical store if you happen to go there, or you can have them delivered. So giving customers that flexibility. So think about, you can't do everything at the same time. So the company started with delivery, it got good at delivery, and then it branched out to go into stores. So think about, if you have an initial model, whether it's delivery or subscription or some starting point, that is a great place to start. Where are you going to go down the line? What is going to be your strategy for growth? And how are you going to potentially expand those channels or expand those ways of communicating with your customers to make it more convenient and to increase adoption? So you're always going to have those early adopters that are gung-ho. They're like, sign me up. But then you're going to have people that are slower to adopt. So how can you expand what you're doing in order to bring them into your business? Okay, let me stop there. Any questions or comments that we want to discuss right now? Because I'm going to get into some of the internal practices. All right, fine. And as I said, I'm available to talk with you personally as a mentor. I'm happy to do that if you have other questions. So a lot of these businesses we've talked about what the product is, what the service is, what's going on externally. And that is important. And it probably is the most salient, the most obvious part of what you're going to be doing. And when you write your submission to the Changemaker Challenge, that's probably what you're going to focus on. But what you do internally matters as well. And I want to use the example of the B Corp certification. And we're going to look at some of the questions they ask because they're really quite revealing. So hopefully some of you know about B Corp certification. Any for-profit business can undergo this certification. There's 200 questions, and you have to score at least an 80 out of 200 in order to get the certification. There's 5 areas: governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. So those are the different areas in which you'll be scored. And here are some famous B Corps and benefit corporations. So everyone from Patagonia who just spoke with us this semester, Warby Parker, Etsy, Kickstarter. So this is becoming very commonplace and very well known. And you cannot see all of the questions in the B Impact Assessment without signing up, but you can see some of them. So I want to go through some of them because it's really interesting what they're asking. They're not really asking about what is your product? How much waste does your product create? They're asking different questions. So let's check these out. And these can help guide you when you're thinking about how do you design the internal operations of your company. So for example, governance. There's 4 questions for each category in the sample. What portion of your management is evaluated in writing on their performance with regard to corporate, social, and environmental targets? So this has nothing to do with the product or service that you're selling. This has to do with your internal HR policies and performance evaluations about whether you take social and environmental targets into account when evaluating management. Okay, so again, not going to be as applicable to you as a startup, but gives you a vision of the future of how you could be designing your company. And it's much easier to do that if you're aware of those things now, rather than setting up a whole HR system and then trying to redesign it later. So evaluating managers and leaders on their performance of targets. Next, does the company have a formal process to share financial information with full-time employees? So one of the themes you'll see in these questions is transparency. Okay, is the company providing information to the employees and other people who are stakeholders, whether it's the community or employees, right? And this is part of the assessment because more transparency, it's like sunlight is the best disinfectant. More transparency leads to more ethical practices. If you share information with people, you're more likely to care about whether that information is accurate, is ethical, and is appropriate than if you just keep it secret. It doesn't matter. So think about transparency and building processes into your business that can create transparency, whether internally with your employees or externally with your community. So this website is included in the slides as well. So I'm just going to do about 2 questions from each of these categories. The next category is workers. How does your company's compensation structure compare with the market? Again, nothing to do with the product or service, but has to do with how you're treating your workers. Are they able to, are you paying them a living wage such that they can go home and take care of their family and not have to go to a second job, right? Because that is not sustainable. So think about how you pay people, what you pay them, and who you're employing. Next one here. What's the minimum number of vacations, sick days, personal days offered annually to full-time workers? Again, thinking more about the quality of life and the atmosphere of your company, the way you do business, not what business you do. Okay, moving on to the community. Again, there's a couple other questions, so you can check these out on your own. When evaluating the social and environmental performance of significant suppliers, so people that you get products and services from, which of the practices apply? Have you visited them? Do you give them specific criteria? Do you evaluate them? Do you give preference to the most sustainable and ethical suppliers? Do you have third-party metrics applied, or is this just kind of you deciding whether they're a good supplier or not? And this is really important because a lot of times we think about our business, we're like, okay, we need some boxes to mail things out. We need this part. We need to order more of this part. And we may be so concentrating so much on making our own business sustainable and ethical in terms of our outputs and what we're delivering and how we're delivering it to customers that we don't consider our inputs, right? Is the supplier's parts coming with a huge amount of waste, right? Can you work with that supplier potentially to decrease the amount of waste? And Subaru of America did that very effectively. They made their plant in Indiana zero waste, landfill free. So they had to work with all of those suppliers to say, hey, stop sending us all this waste, because now we have to deal with it and it counts as waste on our books. So how can you influence your suppliers and other people you do business with to ensure that they're acting ethically and sustainably? So it's not just about you. Remember, that value chain touches everyone. Okay, next one. What percentage of management is from underrepresented populations? Women, minorities, previously excluded populations, people with disabilities, or low-income individuals. And this is, again, we know lots of stories of very rich, wealthy people who create foundations, create social ventures, but they're not really sharing the wealth or sharing the opportunity with people who actually need it, right? So it's very easy to give money away or to start a business that produces something sustainably if you just do it all yourself. You don't have to be inclusive. So how can your business be more inclusive? Really, for those of you that have businesses that deal with certain populations, this is really critical, because it's not going to be a good look if, for example, you have a business that's serving, a minority population in Philadelphia, and you look at the board of directors and it's all, people that are not of color or people from rich families, right? So really think about how you can get representation from the communities and the populations you're serving into the leadership, into the company. All right, next we'll move on to environment. Which is the broadest community with whom your environmental reviews, audits are formally shared? Do you just share them with the owners, executive, the broader community, the employees? So again, going back to transparency. If you say you're ethical and sustainable, but you never have to publish those results, you never have to be audited by anyone, then it really is meaningless. So how can you increase transparency, hold yourself accountable, and then create more credibility and notoriety for your business? Okay, next one. If you lease your facilities, have you worked with your landlord to implement any of the following in the past 2 years? Energy improvements, waste reduction program, water efficiency. So again, thinking beyond yourself. And one of the other questions in here is about leadership. So thinking beyond yourself. You may have all of your ducks in a row and your business may be perfectly sustainable, but if you're doing business or using resources that are operating non-sustainably, that's on you as well. So I think it's over here, actually. Let me go back here. Oh, here it is. So one of the expectations of a sustainable social impact company in the B Impact Assessment is, has your company worked within its industry to develop social and environmental standards? So don't just worry, you cannot just worry about yourself. You have to worry about being a leader and being an exemplar and influencing suppliers, customers, other people in your industry to improve as a whole. And again, Subaru does this very well. It has a zero landfill plant in Indiana. It offers free training to any company that's interested in how to create a zero landfill plant. So, and a lot of companies, I think Patagonia has something similar. When you have an expertise, when you get really good at doing something sustainably or creating social impact, your obligation nowadays is to share it and to become a leader, not to keep it for yourself. So some things to consider internally. Okay, that is all I have for you. I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a lot of different ideas. I'm definitely open to feedback. If you have comments or constructive criticism, I'm also happy to hear more about your ventures and your ideas and how we can potentially pack them with more social and environmental impact. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
Carrie, thank you very much. A ton of good knowledge, and we'll take some questions in a second. Two things I just want to reemphasize that Carrie said. The businesses and the nonprofits Carrie presented are extremely innovative, and they've all been around between 1 and 2 years and about 10 or 15 years. You're not expected to be at that level, but as Carrie said, think about what they're doing, and if you could add that twist to an idea you have or potentially to an opportunity you see. The second thing that Carrie said that I just want to reemphasize is one of the beautiful things about Temple is we all come from very diverse backgrounds. And, you know, some of us are living or have lived the issues that we're trying to address, and others have perhaps been a bit more fortunate. But never be afraid, as Carrie said, to utilize what you've gone through or what you've seen, whether it be, you know, a learning disability, you know, a family member or spouse or child who's on some type of addiction or whatever. You know, whatever it is or whatever you've seen, that's great inspiration. And it reminds me of someone who I believe, and Lindsay, you could correct me, came in the top 3 in BYOBB. It's a young man who grew up with a woman, or a young girl at the time, who had paralyzing panic attacks. And with that as his inspiration, he developed basically something you put behind your ear that sends some type of signals to your brain when you find yourself getting into a panic attack, and it basically calms you down. And I don't know the latest, but as of end of last year, he was going for FDA approval. So again, you know, personal experiences are great motivators, and you also have lived through some customer empathy, or what we call research of actually being in that situation, and that could be a giant, you know, opportunity for you. Any questions? Any additional questions for Carrie? Either unmute yourself or put them in chat. I guess Carrie is so informative, there are no questions. So I am going to not share my count. Oops, I'm sharing the wrong thing with you, sorry. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second until I get my slides back up.
And as Alan mentioned, some of these, you're not going to be able to do everything right away. So you may have your core business model that you work with for this session, but you can put in elements of your vision. What would you want this business to be in 5 or 10 years from now? So give us a little glimpse of your vision, and that'll also help you, think about where you want to go.
Okay, so again, key dates, the 12th, how I won the Changemaker Challenge, 17th. You get to meet with experts such as Kerry and other great people. Submissions are due the end of night, the 19th, the summit and the Changemaker, including the Changemaker Challenge competitions, the 24th. Scan here for the resources, and if you are thinking about it, reach out to myself, reach out to Kerry, go through the resources in the resources in the folder if you scan this QR code. And then for people who have come, and thank you, there is also, here's a QR code for suitable points.